Hello and welcome back to 4FS Gaming. This is the second installment in a series designed to teach you some of the more advanced and powerful maneuvers and tactics when playing Starfighter game modes in Battlefront 2. Last week we covered some evasive maneuvers, including spiraling to avoid fire and looping to cut inside your opponent's turning circle. It is this looping that we are going to look very closely at today. Here is a quick refresher. Turning towards that orange arrow indicator points you towards your pursuer, and in turn, if they follow your on-screen indicator, you will follow each other around in a big loop. Many people get frustrated at this, and find that Starfighter game modes can devolve into flying in circles simulators, but this is usually because these pilots don't have the knowledge of various tactics that they can use to break the loop and win that dogfight. So to that end, we are going to look at 4 tactics that I like to pull off when locked in these fly-in loops. The first is the most simple, and what most people try to do instinctively, which is to catch your opponent and fire on them. Now this will only work if you have a better turn-in circle than your opponent, so in an interceptor this is a good idea, but in a bomber you're going to have some difficulty and should consider doing something else. Remember that there are 3 ways to improve your turn-in speeds. The first is through some star cards. The second is by pulling back on the throttle and reducing your speed, and the third is to follow the loop in a vertical direction instead of turning left or right. To do this, use the roll controls to rotate and steer your ship rather than the normal turn-in controls. When you are confident that you are turning faster than your opponent, just keep moving towards that indicator and you should soon have the opportunity to fire. However, it is unlikely that they will stay in your crosshairs long enough to secure a kill. More likely they will appear for a second, and then leave your field of view for a few more seconds before reappearing. To this end, I recommend pre-firing your lasers and then drawing them onto the target, as it will maximize damage potential. As long as you strike the target every 4 seconds or so, they won't be able to regain any health without abilities, and in this way you can win at the war of attrition. Part of being a good pilot is realizing when this isn't going to work. Maybe your opponent simply can match your turning speed or even exceed it. Maybe they have lots of health and abilities and they make it impossible to chip them down. Or maybe they are putting a lot of pressure on you and you are just trying to shake them to stay alive. In this instance, we're going to use a technique called threading the needle. This is where we use cover and terrain of the map, weave very closely to collisions, and try to force a pursuing starfighter into making a critical mistake and crashing into another object. The obvious downside is that you will not be credited with a kill, however it is a great way to escape trouble and it is downright embarrassing for your pursuer, so that's a big bonus in my books. You can see this kind of in action in the background clips. I start to take damage or feel some pressure, and I immediately begin to weave around objects, and moments later, my pursuer just disappears. This can be done in any ship as long as you're aware of its hitbox and turn rate, so that while you are able to avoid crashing yourself, your opponent may not be. You will always have the advantage in this situation. This is because while you only have to concentrate on trying to weave through objects, your pursuer is primarily focused on targeting you, and that splitting their concentration between the two things means it's a lot harder for them to pilot safely. By setting the loop and then chasing in circles first, you can also gain an advantage in this maneuver, as your opponent will get comfortable blindly following their indicator that shows your direction. Now if you were to move so that there is an object between you and your opponent, that indicator will still direct them to right through the object in the straightest line towards you. So if they are not concentrating or are too slow at their controls, it will lead them right to their doom. The next tactic is one that I find particularly nefarious, and I call it spawn baiting. This is where, when dogfighting an opponent, you move towards your own spawn, and continue to dogfight in that area. As your teammates fly in from spawn, the first thing that they see is your opponent flying in circles, meaning that your pursuer will be under a lot of pressure. This might get them killed outright, or allow you to break off and set up an attack run again. As a general rule, you want to force fights to happen on home turf, or your side of the map, as it means any dead teammates will join the fray faster, while the enemy team has an artificially extended respawn timer. The final tactic for this installment is what I call the break and return. I like to use this when whoever is pursuing me is more of an annoyance than a true threat, but it would still take a fair bit of time to deal with them using another method and I want to get back to killing. So in these cases, I will break off from my loop with my pursuer long enough to kill another starship that is more distant, or maybe strafe an objective, before immediately returning to the safety of my loop to recover health and select the next target. By using evasive techniques mentioned in the last video, I can usually get into a good rhythm that allows me to still rack up kills while completely occupying my pursuer. You can also use this on the person coming after you if you are fast enough. Break the loop by accelerating away at top speed and then sharply turn and re-engage. This gives you a moment where the enemy will almost always appear in your sights before you return to the loop. If you have a high-powered weapon or excellent torpedoes, then you might even kill them outright. Just remember the same can be said for you, so be prepared to go defensive as soon as you see a barrage incoming. The other hidden advantage of this tactic is that often whoever is chasing you is in turn being pursued by one of your own teammates. If you straighten out, then so will your pursuer, giving your teammate a straight shot. Even if this doesn't completely kill your attacker, they will often turn back and loop with your teammate, so when you complete the break maneuver, you will have a clear and distant target to line up with your lasers. I have found all of these tactics highly useful and I can put them to great effect. Hopefully they can carry you further on the path to Starship Mastery. That is all that we have time for today. In the next video we shall talk about some more baiting tactics like playing chicken and how to use abilities effectively and play as a team. Thank you so much for watching. This is Ascendance from 4FS Gaming.